Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at collisions. First, I've got this game screen class open, but let's go to the robot class. So I'm going to look at these rectangles, and they're just right down here. Notice these rectangle names. The variables are rect, rect2, rect3, rect4, yellow, red, foot left, and foot right. So we're going to actually try to get a visual on these because all of our characters, different shapes and sizes and stuff like that. So if we can visually see these collision boxes, then chances are we're going to be able to edit them so that it works a lot better for the pictures that we have. So I'm scrolling down here in game screen class, and I'm going to kind of show you the inspiration for this. How can we actually show these? So already in this for loop here, I have this g.draw rectangle. So for the graphics object known as g, I'm using the draw rectangle or draw rect method on that to draw out those yellow rectangles. So I should be able to then draw these for my picture. Now this picture here, the reason why I want to draw them is because I know my picture and probably your pictures and stuff like that, your tiles, are all different sizes. They're not the same exact size. So obviously the collisions would be off a little bit. See, my picture up here is 110 by 110 pixels. So it's a little bit different than I think what's the 162 and 163 image that's already out there. So obviously replacing this, my collision box are going to be a little bit off. It's going to mess up my collisions a little bit. So let's visually get a look on these. So by the end of this video, we should have our collision boxes showing. That's pretty much the goal. And then next videos, we'll go ahead and we'll get them working so that we can actually tweak it a little bit and adjust it so that our collisions are much more spot on. So I'm going to go ahead and put a comment down here under this for loop, and it just lets me know what's this next bit of code here for. So again, I'm using that graphics object known as G. I'm going to use the draw rect method, and I'm going to work on the robot, which is the class that draws my character, the rect that we just looked at when we first opened this class. So the rect rectangle, I'm going to go on the left coordinate. So this is finding that X coordinate, if you will. And then I'm going to use the robot.rect. So again, I'm focusing on that rectangle top. That's going to be that Y coordinate. So that gives me an XY coordinate on the top left corner. And then I'll start actually drawing this out so that I can graphically see the same exact collision box that is invisibly being drawn, but this way we'll be able to visually see it. So robot.rect.height, and then I'll comma robot.rect.width. So that'll be the coordinates as well as the height and the width of it, so it draws out correctly. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a color. Now my bullets are yellow. I'm actually probably just going to make this one yellow as well. My other corresponding ones, I'll pick some different colors so I can actually tell which rectangle is which. So once we do this, we should be able to make sure we don't have any errors. Let's go ahead and run the class real quick, and then I think once we run this one, you should be able to kind of get an idea of what is it we're trying to achieve here. So I go ahead and run that, and we'll take a look. Okay, and you'll see right here, once I run this, I have a yellow rectangle or square right above the top there. So that's the torso of my character. So again, you can see he's a lot different size. And you can see I'm still I'm hitting this wall even though I'm not really physically hitting it. And the reason why I'm hitting that wall is because, well, there's some difference in the size of the image, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this and the line that I just put in there. And then I'm going to paste it, and because my rectangles are named rect, rect2, rect3, rect4, I can pretty quickly just put in the 2 for these rectangles. Just make sure we put it in all 4 of those areas. And just again, so I can get a different visual, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make this one blue. And then save it real quick, and then I'll go ahead and run it. And now when we run this, let's take a look. Now when we run it, we see the yellow rectangle and the blue rectangle, so you kind of get a better idea. Now you can see the blue rectangle is really touching the tiles, the floors and stuff like that, where my character's feet are still up in the air. Before I get too far, I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm writing what these are so I can kind of go back to it more quickly instead of having to try to figure it out. Because unfortunately the rectangles aren't named something that makes more sense, like, you know, torso, legs, you know, rect 3 should be left arm, rect 4 should be right arm. That's not the case right now. So copy and paste that line. I'm going to go ahead and do my rect 3 now, and I will change that color. to red, and then we'll go ahead and we'll save it, and we'll run that one again real quick. This way, bit by bit, we get to make sure, A, if we have any errors, we know exactly where they are, and B, we get to make sure that we're visually seeing, okay, this is that area, this is that area, right? So as you can see, the little left rectangle there is where the arm for the robot normally was. But now it's kind of hanging out there. I really don't even need that one unless maybe my characters turn around walking left. It might cover the barrel of the gun. But for the image that I have right now, it's completely useless. Again, I'm copying and pasting this. I'm going to go ahead and put rect4 for each one of these because I've got that name for my other rectangle. This should be my right arm. Go ahead and we'll change the color to make it something a little bit different. We'll make it gray. It doesn't really matter what colors you're picking. But definitely should be different colors so you can get a visual and make sure that you're getting what you're hoping you're drawing, of course. Okay, so we'll watch this load up here. And there you go. So now this gray extension is on the right side. Again, you can see it's further out than my barrel. And as a matter of fact, it looks like that's what's hitting this set of tiles here. So that's going to have to be adjusted in the near future. That and a couple other things. In order for the collisions to more accurately reflect. So let me go back to this robot class because since I'm renaming or at least labeling the code a little bit, it makes sense that I kind of go back to this so I don't have to keep remembering like, wait a second, what was that rectangle and what was that rectangle? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to edit these so that they're named correctly. And I could change the variable names too, which might be good for future purposes. But for now, let's go ahead. And I don't really need to label those because foot left and foot right, those are pretty good names. And I understand exactly what they're going to be. So speaking of which, we'll go ahead and we'll draw those out as well. But before we do, there's one called yellow-red. That's a little bit misleading. We don't know what yellow-red is. It should probably be called proximity or local area, something a little bit better than yellow-red. And you'll see exactly why in just one second when I go ahead and I draw this. So we're going to go ahead and change those from rect or rect3 or rect4 or whatever to yellow-red. And we'll give it its own color so we'll be able to very easily distinguish what rectangle this is. And go ahead with green. And we'll save it, and I'll go ahead and let's go run it. And now you see a really huge green square. So all of our other rectangles are gone now. Well, it makes sense because we're using a mechanism like painting on the screen. And whatever you paint last, obviously would paint over anything that was painted before, especially given the size of this box. It's a huge box. So let's go ahead and let's actually move this one to draw before all the other ones. All right. And this yellow-red is actually like a proximity. So what we do is when we're checking for collisions, we're actually checking for any tiles that are within that bounding or any tiles or any other rectangles that are within that larger yellow-red box. So we're not checking for every character that are way off the screen and stuff like that. We're just checking for anything that would be local within that proximity box. Again, so that's basically what we're doing. We're not checking for tiles that are way over here or anything like that. We're just checking for the tiles that would be close, like the ones that are underneath it or to the side of it, or any heliboids when we start doing collision with those, or any other enemies once we start doing collisions with those. So we'll go ahead and we'll copy and paste, and we'll change the yellow-red down there to foot left. So I've got my yellow-red rectangle box up top. I got rect3, rect2, rect2, 3, 4, and then I've got all these foot lefts. And again, I'll make it its own separate color so I can take a look and see which one this really is. We'll go with let's go with a black here, I guess. Might be the best one. And this time, just to kind of make it go by a little bit more quickly, I'm just going to copy and paste this. And we'll go ahead and do the foot right one as well. And I'll go ahead and I'll change that to foot right. Copy that. And then paste over these next ones here. We'll go ahead and make sure we give it a different color, again, so that we can differentiate, make sure that there's no errors or misplacements. Go ahead and save that, and let's go ahead and run it. All right, now that we go ahead and run it, we'll take a look. And all right, so now we've got our large proximity box where we're checking for collisions. We can see our left arm, our right arm, our feet, our torso, our legs and hip area. You can see obviously with the other character this fits pretty nicely, but with the new character that we have, it's definitely, it's too big. It's not going to be the right sizes. So we're going to have a lot of errors and issues if we continue on this path without changing these rectangles. So, or, you know, coordinating how the collisions are handled. So that's what we're going to do in the future video. Next video, we'll go ahead and we'll try to move these in a little bit. And we'll also try to get the character to come down. We'll talk a little bit more about what those numbers mean for the size of our images and stuff like that. So hopefully you've got all your boxes showing. You can see exactly what's going on now, and you'll start to get an idea of what things you might need to change in order to make your collisions better for your character.